Hello and welcome back to the box office, guys. First and foremost, I want to say sorry for last week's hiccup. I actually did record and post a video on Charlo versus Brian Castaño, but for those of you who are into YouTube and know about a little bit about uploading, those clips that I added kept getting flagged, and it's always on the PBC Al Heyman fighters. Uncle Al Heyman is very hard to work with, and so is YouTube. I clipped everything out, but ultimately, when I uploaded it, it uploaded and then it got partially blocked. So I know very few of you actually got to see the video on Charlo versus Castaño, but we're just going to have to scratch last week and keep moving forward with this week. This week we have a matchup of Davids. We have David Lemieux versus David Benavidez. David Benavidez is a fighter in which he is considered the boogeyman of the division and is looking for bigger and better fights. He's been on the record calling out Jamal Charlo, the Charlo twins, Caleb Plant. He even calls out Canelo. He's looking to get a bigger fight, but he's also looking to keep the momentum moving forward so that he doesn't have any bumps along the way to that big fight. Standing in his way is David Lemieux. David Lemieux, a lot of you may remember him from being a Golden Boy fighter, one who got promoted fairly decent and was actually having a good career to start off his young campaign. What happened is he took a couple losses in his career, but he still showed value. But eventually he had a couple more losses and he was never able to live up to the expectations that were set for him. Formerly known as the Golden Boy fighter, is now crossing over and fighting on a PBC card, trying to renew and have a second chance at being a top contender. If this were to happen, it would be a massive upset. And talking about upsets, let's go ahead and just talk about the Vegas underdog first, David Lemieux. He is a plus 940. 940, yes. You bet $100, and if he pulls off the upset any way, shape, or form, you get $940 in return. With that being said, it would be a massive upset. He's going to be entering the ring at 43 wins with 4 losses. 36 of those wins are coming by the way of KO. But on the contrary, he's been stopped 2 times in his career as well. His height is 5'9.5", and he has a 70-inch reach. His last 3 opponents he's been having a low-key career as of late. So his last 3 fights have been against David Segarra, Francis Ntetu, and Maxim Bursak. All of those came by, 2 of those wins came by TKO, and then the last one, Bursak, was a split decision victory. If you're looking for some names in his resume, you see that he has 4 losses. 2 of those losses actually came against Billy Joe, which we remember from losing to Canelo last year, and Triple G, who we all know Triple G and Canelo went back and forth as well. High profile names in his resume, so he has some experience fighting at the top competition. The thing with David Lemieux, though, is, as I mentioned before, he has never been able to get over that hump and cross over to stardom. Now, David Benavidez, on the other hand, is sitting at a minus 1,800 Vegas favorite. So he's going... Basically, what this is saying is you have to bet $1,800, and if he wins any way, shape, or form, you'll get $100 in return. Not a wise investment, and the odds makers think that this is more of a showcase fight because of the, not contrasting styles, but the style matchup that they both possess. David Benavidez is going to enter the ring at 25-0 with 22 knockouts. High knockout percentage. His height is 6'1" with a 74.5-inch reach. So just by looking at their physical attributes, you can already see that Benavidez is going to have the height and the reach over David Lemieux. His last 3 fights, as I mentioned, he has been getting showcase fights against Kyron Davis, Ronald Ellis, and Romer Angulo, all of which he did stop. But if you're looking for more high-profile names on his resume, he did stop Andre Durrell and J. Leon Love. One thing that David Lemieux does have going for him is that he did face arguably the better competition in Billy Joe Saunders and Triple G. So he is experienced in seeing high-caliber opponents. David Benavidez being another high-level opponent as well. Now, before we get into the keys of victory, let's take a look at the betting guide for these fighters. We have a small betting guide, and we're going to start off with the Vegas underdog David Lemieux. So for David Lemieux, the money line, meaning he wins any way, shape, or form, is at 940, plus 940, meaning you bet $100. And if he wins by KO, TKO, disqualification, unanimous decision, split decision, as long as he wins, you bet $100, you get $940 in return. Now, do you think he's going to win by knockout? That's sitting at 1,400 plus 1,400. You bet $100, you get 1,400 in return. And if you think he's going to win a decision, that's sitting at a plus 2,000. You bet $100, you get $2,000 in return, only if he wins by decision. Now, the odds makers set these odds, and they believe that it is a long shot for David Lemieux to win. But if he were to win, they go ahead and tell you, we can see a knockout being his method of victory opposed to being a decision. So they see the KO being more likely than a decision, but both, may I add, very, very unlikely is what they're telling us by how these odds are looking. Now, moving over to David Benavidez's odds, his money line, meaning he wins any way, shape, or form, is sitting at 1,800. You bet $1,800, and if he wins, you get $100 in return. As I mentioned, not a lot of value. And if you're looking at the KO/TKO, that is sitting at a minus 650. So remember what I said about this being a showcase fight? Even the odds makers here are saying David Benavidez should get this guy out of here as a minus $650 to get $100 in return if he does knock the guy out is kind of saying a lot about this matchup. And by decision, it's actually sitting at a plus 700. So if you think David Benavidez is going to win a unanimous decision, split decision, majority decision, nonetheless, it goes the distance. He wins by decision. That's sitting at a plus 700. That's even better odds than a David Lemieux victory. So they see David Benavidez getting a decision victory before they see David Lemieux winning. Now, as far as the draw goes, that's sitting at a plus $3,800, meaning all those that I mentioned beforehand are more likely to happen than a draw. And there was no over-under rounds yet, but I did some little investigating, and the odds are better for David Benavidez. Well, not better for them, for the fight to end in rounds 4 through 6, as those were sitting at a plus 200, 300, while other rounds in the later ends of the fight were sitting at 600, 750, and so on and so forth. So when the over-under rounds do pop up, expect them to be anywhere between over-under 4 to 6 rounds. I'm guessing 5.5. Now, this is a style matchup that doesn't show signs of going the distance. David Lemieux, a known come-forward fighter, and David Benavidez, a career come-forward fighter, are expected to meet in a head-on collision. So the odds makers are kind of painting the picture for us before they enter the ring. Now let's take a look at the keys of victory, and let's take a look at the keys of victory for the Vegas underdog, David Lemieux. For David Lemieux, things are going to be a little, difficult. The odds are stacked against you, as we can see, but I'm going to give you 3 keys. And key number 1 is, and this is going to be a tough one, is don't get pushed back. What you want to do is you want to be the one moving forward because you are the natural come forward fighter, just like David Benavidez is, but you want to come forward and you want to be fighting leading. If David Benavidez starts imposing his will and you start fighting going backwards, it's going to spell big trouble for you because you're going to be fighting off that back foot and your punches aren't going to have a lot of sting or as much steam as they should to back a Benavidez off of you. So you want to be coming forward and you want to be fighting kind of off that front foot so that when you're throwing your weight around and you're turning into the punches, your weight is on your front foot so that you can set up, and this is going to be key number 2, that left hook. David Lemieux, if you remember, way back around the time Canelo versus Triple G1 happened, he was known for having a nice left hook. His knockout punch was the left hook. So, David Benavidez, let's do what you're good at and let's try to get that money punch to land. That's going to be your game changer. So, your second key, left hook. Try to land it to the body, try to land it to the head. But you need to start establishing momentum and you need to land that left hook. It's going to be a tall task to ask for because, yeah, your opponent is taller, but he is a more, not experienced, but the more favorable opponent. You're presenting yourself to his strengths when you do that. But key number 3 for you is take risks. As a massive underdog, you're going to have to take those risks. You don't want to just show up for a paycheck because if you just show up for a paycheck, you're going to be written off and you might not get to fight again at this stage. But if you start taking risk, if you start shooting when he shoots, if he comes in and starts throwing punches and bunches, and you give him something to throw back, you throw something back at him, and you make him think, you land a punch or two, and you can kind of get him to second guess his next approach or his attack, you can start building momentum to potentially start winning rounds. If you manage to land that left hook, you might be able to change momentum of the fight. But it gets to the point, Lemieux, where it's more than just winning the fight. If you show up and you become a formidable opponent, you might get another fight. You might get another bout in which you can showcase and extend your career so that you can keep getting paid. And sometimes that's what it's all about, especially when you're a massive underdog of this magnitude. Now, as far as for the Vegas favorite, David Benavidez, the boogeyman, some call him. Well, you're 6 foot, fighting a 5'9" guy. Fight tall, and that's going to be key number 1. I want you to fight tall, and I want you to fight off that jab. Boom. You want to keep him at bay with that jab as you're pressing forward. But you want to keep that hand in front of him. You want to start, if he's lunging forward, you want to catch him with the end of your punches because you are the taller opponent. If you start throwing those straight punches, your punches are going to get there before his. Now, this is the type of matchup that you can add wrinkles to your game. You can work on skills that you've developed throughout camp and you can see and apply them to your opponent. Not to overlook your opponent, but you can kind of play with a different approach. Using a different approach, you're going to be able to develop that wrinkle that you can potentially use in a more difficult or bigger fight. Maybe one that's more evenly matched. So fight tall, work off that jab, try to add a different element to your game. And step number 2 is going to be patient. Cut the ring off. When you're in there and you start imposing your will, as we all expect you to do, don't just follow the guy and let him dance around the ring. Cut the ring off. If he steps to your left, stay nice and balanced, step over, pump that jab. Be patient. If the knockout's not coming, it's okay. If he's not exposing himself, it's okay. Just be very patient so that when you see the opening, you can take it. Last thing you want is for him to land that left hook because you weren't patient and you expose yourself a little bit too much. He does possess that power, so just be patient. Step when he steps, cut the ring off, and keep that jab in front of him. That effective aggressiveness is what we call it. You're going to keep him nice and tight. And if you keep him nice and tight, nice and tense, he's going to be exerting energy more than he would want to. So the more he exerts energy in the second half of the fight, he might not have the pop. And if you're patient enough, you'll be able to get him out in the second half if it gets to that point. And number 3 is basically be David Benavidez. Throw your punches in bunches. We all expect this fight to be 2 two fighters in a collision course, landing head first in the middle of the ring, throwing punches and bunches. Why would you go away from your strengths? What's worked for you for your whole career, right? So punches and bunches. But I would like to see you fight tall. I would like to see you use that jab. Be patient, cut the ring off, and then throw punches and bunches, just so that you can add a wrinkle to your game, just so you can work on your game a little bit more and develop as a fighter. Like I mentioned before, this is the type of bout where you can see a little bit of fighter development because of the quality opponent. He's expected to get him out of there, so get him out of there, but work on your game a little bit. Add a wrinkle to your game so that when you do face a Charlo, when you do face a Caleb Plant or a Canelo, you have different aspects and elements that you've added from these learning experiences. Now, as far as my prediction goes, I'm going to take David Benavidez. I'm going to take him by knockout. I don't like to predict decision knockout. I mean, although I usually do, but I've never felt more certain of a fight not going the distance because of the styles that are meeting in the ring. David Lemieux is a come forward fighter. David Benavidez is a come forward fighter. And this fight might be explosive for the first 3-4 rounds until one fighter ultimately imposes his will. It should be Benavidez, and gets the other fighter out of there. So I do make it, maybe the first 2-3 rounds might be entertaining, might be fireworks, but ultimately David Benavidez should be too much, is a naturally bigger fighter, so he should be able to get a David Lemieux out of there. David Benavidez by knockout's my prediction, but I want to know what you guys think. How do you think this fight's going to unfold? What do you guys think is going to happen? Anything exciting as far as maybe a shocking punch lands, changes the dynamic for a round or two, exposes David Benavidez? And then I want to know who you guys want to see David Benavidez fight. We have a lot of talks about Charlo. We have a lot of talks about Caleb Plant. He wants a Canelo. So what do you guys think about David Benavidez and where he should head as far as potential opponents for his next big fight? That's it, guys. Again, sorry about last week's video. Attached all the social media handles on the description video. We're going to be more active this week. Boxofficeboxing.com. Thank you, guys. Take care. We'll see you next time.